So what do we have here? We got a Frontier tool rack. Frontier tool rack is a military surplus item. It's made for mounting on Humvees, to mount some wilderness tools. You've got a mattock, you've got an axe, and you've got a D-handled shovel. Now these didn't come with it. These are my tools, with the exception of the D-handled shovel. I did have to get a new D-handled shovel because I didn't have one that would fit. But a buddy of mine purchased 3 of these, one for himself and one for me and one for another buddy of ours. He got them at a special deal from Old Grouch Military Supply. I'll put a link down in the show notes. And he got a special deal on them because the packaging had gotten wet and was damaged. The packaging was damaged, so he got him a really good deal on them. And after getting it, I unpacked it, and it had a little bit of surface rust on it, nothing major, but a little bit. So I cleaned it up with a wire wheel on my grinder. Did some other little cleanup things too. These little metal brackets, I'm not sure if you can see that. I went ahead and put in my tumbler just because I had it to clean the scale off and everything. And then once I had it cleaned up, I thought, well, that looks really good. Let's take it a step further. So I painted it with a product called Plastidip. Now, Plastidip is for tool handles. You dip your tool handle in the Plastidip and gives it a nice rubber coating. But they also sell it in an aerosol. So I tried it out, and it really came out nice. It's got kind of a rubberized feel to it. It seems heavy duty. It's going to last. So I really like that. And this mounts in here really solid. I'm not sure if you can see that, but those tools aren't going anywhere. They can't. They're locked in because of the way the rack is designed. And we're going to take this a step further today, and I'm going to build. I couldn't figure out how to get it in my truck in a way that worked real well. So I'm going to build a custom mounting bracket for this, and that's going to be today's project. So let's get started. Okay, so what are we going to need to build this rack? I'm not going to take you through the tools. You'll see the tools as we go through. And you'll see me doing some welding in this project, but really, if you don't have a welder, you can do all of this, at least 90% of this, probably all of this with a little bit of ingenuity, with a hacksaw, a hand drill, and not much else. So, but as far as materials, what do we need to get? All right. Most of this is extra steel that I've had from other projects, some scrap, that sort of thing. But I did have to buy some 2" by 2" 1/8" wall square tube. I've got a piece of 1" square tube that I had from another project, a little piece of scrap angle, 1" by, what is that, 1/8", probably 1/8" flat stock, a little bit of 1/4" plate, some more 1/4" scrap that I'm going to cut off and use. Also, we've got a 7" by 1/2" bolt, a 7" by 1/2" pin with a cotter pin in the end. I'll show you where that comes in later. And then some miscellaneous 1/2" washers, nuts, lock washers, lock nuts. So that's what we're going to use to build this, and let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is walk you through the main pieces of this rack, and then we'll come back and hit all the details. So first of all, and I'm going to name all of these pieces the same way I will in the diagram on the website, so you can kind of follow along. So the first piece we've got is made out of a 2" by 2" tube stock, 1/8" thick. This is what I'm going to be calling the receiver tongue. So this actually goes into the Hitch receiver. I've got roughly a 5/8" bore here for the Hitch pin. You can use any Hitch pin that fits your Hitch receiver. It's actually not 5/8. I mic'd this Hitch pin. It's a little bit over 5/8, just a few thousandths of an inch. So what I did is I marked my center. I center drilled this. This hole is centered on the 2" bar. And then I used a unibit to just drill out until I had a hole that was just a little over 5/8. I'll give the measurements of the components, but I want to emphasize here that the dimensions for your rack may be different than the dimensions for my rack, because it's going to depend on what truck you've got, how you're trying to mount it, etc. So we've got the receiver tongue. Here we've got what I'm calling a gusset, made out of 1/4-inch plate stock. It's made so that just basically to reinforce this joint. So it's basically a triangle with the tips cut off, and the flats of that triangle, that abbreviated triangle, to match the 2-inch, just welded on there. The receiver tongue and the upright here are cut at a 45-degree angle, and that joint is welded here and also on the inside, and then the whole joint is reinforced with these gussets. Then we've got the upright here, which is kind of going to be your pivot point, just also 2-inch tube stock. Then we've got what I'm calling the vertical frame members. These are the main parts of the rack that's going to hold everything. I'll come back to this later. Then we've got what I'm calling the latch bar. This is what the latches on the tool rack mount into. What I've done here, see if you can see that, is I've taken a small belt grinder and ground out so that you've got a gap in this bar, and that's what the latches are going to mount into. I used like I said, an upright vertical belt grinder. You could also use a regular bench grinder on this. It's not critical, but just try to make it as neat as you can, just for appearance's sake. But so long as that latch can fit in there and then tighten up against this part right here, you're good to go. The vertical frame members, again, I'll give you the dimensions. The horizontal frame member, everything made out of 2-inch tube stock. Then we've got, let me see if I can get it so you can see it here. Then we've got the handle mount. And this is, again, 1/4-inch plate. And what I've done is just take and, I've cut the corners off of a piece of, a square piece of, I've cut the corners off of a square piece of 1/4-inch, and then I've ground this part here that the handle is going to fit down into. Everything just welded on. When we come down here, I've got the, what would I call that? The pivot stop, right? The way that works, and I'll show you when it's on the truck, is when you take the pin out and pivot this down to put your tailgate down, this rotates, hits down here on the upright, and stops the rotation. It basically holds it out at 90 degrees. Your hinge point is a 1/2-inch bolt. With washers on that side. I've got a lock washer, a regular washer, and a lock washer here. And then I've got the nut tightened down, obviously. I've also taken and drilled this bolt so that I can put, in this case, temporarily I've got what they call a safety pin in here. It's not a real safety pin, but that's to keep the nut from threading out. You're constantly going, well, not constantly, but you're going to be rotating the frame down, pivoting the frame down on the upright to put your tailgate down, which is going to put pretty much continuous torque on this. And it's possible that even with the lock washer, that could loosen up. And since you're going to have this on the road, it's going to be pretty critical that this not fall apart while you're going 80 miles an hour down the highway. I've just put this extra feature in of putting this safety pin in to keep that from back threading. Now I think I'm probably going to put something else in there a little more substantial than this little safety pin, but it'll work for now. Again, you're not talking about a lot of shear force on this, because it's not the bolt trying to slip out and shear against the side of the vertical frame member. You're talking about it stopping the nut from back threading, which is a lot less shear force. Then I've got a 1/2-inch pin in here you take this out, and that allows it to pivot, and that's also secured over on this side. So that's how it all goes together. Again, there'll be a diagram of this, a measured diagram of this on the website if you want to download it. I'll put the link down below in the show notes. And let's get this thing on the truck and show you how it works. pretty good, right? Now the reason I made it with a pivot in it is so you can put the tailgate down, but I'll show you that once I get the rack on it. So here we've got our rack full of tools. Basically, the handle slides into the handle mount and pivots down. And each of these, oh, I don't have it in there, good. There. And then these latches, you unlatch each of these latches. And they fit into these gaps that we've ground into the rack. Well, the rack mount. And there you have it. All mounted up and ready to go. Now, if you need to put your tailgate down, you just pull this pin, rotate this down. It hits on the stop, holds it horizontal, and put our tailgate down. Pretty simple. So there you have it, not complicated, but a nice little project, and I like the way it looks, I like the way it came out, and I like the way it functions. Total investment, I don't know, 25 bucks, maybe 30 bucks, something like that, but looks good. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give us a thumbs up in the video below. If you like this kind of thing, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you. And head on over to selfsufficientpath.com. I'll put a link in the show notes to the measured diagram. We've got all of our videos and all of our content there. Thanks.